For VR, I kind of had experiences with two labs. I wanted to do this kind of hard, super realistic experience, which was the military experience, where they really try to simulate what it's like to be in combat. So in the travel lab I saw, we just wore goggles, but if you went into their real lab, they would pump in smells, they would vibrate the floor to emulate kind of driving, motor shaking explosions and stuff like that. And then I went to this lab at Stanford called the Virtual Human Interaction Lab, which is like the magic realism side of the VR world. And they're really inspired by Jaron Lanier and kind of this idea of alternate bodies. So one of the things that I did in there was, they never told me what I was going to do. They just said, come to the lab. And I got there one day and they said, get down on all fours and wear these like infrared markers. They put them on my back and they put them on my arms. Okay, fine. And they snapped on the VR and I was a cow, right? And I was like, okay. what they're experimenting with is Jaron Lanier kind of famously asked this question of, why do you have to have a human body in virtual reality, right? And he said, imagine that you're a lobster. Okay, you drive arm one with this arm, you drive arm two with this arm, how do you drive the rest of the arms, right? So the question is, how well can you adapt to these novel bodies? So they put me in a cow. And I could see my cow doppelganger across from me, because it's actually very hard to wear a helmet and crawl around on the floor and look at your own body as a cow body. So we did all of these things that kind of bonded me to the cow. Like, do this, and the cow would do that, right? And then they said, okay, here's your job. You have to gain all of this weight so you reach a certain number of pounds. Okay. So I go over and I eat, I go over and I drink, and then they say, go back to your starting point, because now we're going to send you to the slaughterhouse. Right? And then the floor starts to shake, and this truck, like, it starts making that beep, 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 backup noises, and I freaked out, right? I can hear myself. I have a tape of myself, and in it, I'm yelling, this is brutal, right? Like, at no one in particular, and VR is like being on stage. You're not supposed to break the illusion, of the fourth wall. I am really scared, and it's because basically I have come to empathize with this other that quickly, right? Like, I feel so responsible for this other imaginary being, and that turns out to be what they were trying to test. In the real experiment, what they would have done afterwards is kind of put me through all of these batteries of tests to gauge how I felt about animals and how likely I was to donate to animal rights causes. And that was a real experience. It was very visceral. And the other things that they did after that is they made me a coral, because they wanted to see how people would behave in a body that's even more unlike yourself. So like a sea. And then they did a thing where they gave me a third arm. And the idea was, how quickly would I learn how to drive a third arm? And I'll tell you, it happened like that. It was, okay, so in VR, the third arm is coming out of my chest, and I'm wearing controllers on my wrist. They didn't tell me how to drive it. They just said, make your third arm move. They said, tap that thing. It was just like that. It was an amazing experience. Yeah. Did I answer all the...
Well, I was going to ask, where do you want to go next? Like, now that you've tried these awesome things, like, what do you think would be the next step?
Yeah, big
for
question
virtual reality.
for virtual reality. Both of these labs were trying to do things for pro-social reasons, to help people, right? To either prevent a disorder, cure a disorder, or kind of make people more empathetic with their environment and with other people. I thought that was a really awesome application of VR. They were talking about using it with students. Could you bring students in, and instead of reading about global warming and the effect on ocean life, would you be able to empathize with ocean life? I thought that was a cool idea. The big question for me is, how long does that effect last, right? So I would love to see more research that shows how long what happens in VR lingers in your real life.